Hat o skajamado, num jamwut num. They called her Ghost, not because she disappeared, but because no one ever knew she existed to begin with. 12 years ago, a young Marine dragged an unconscious soldier from a burning Humvee in the middle of a Fallujah street and vanished before anyone could get her name. That soldier? He's now a billionaire tech CEO. And last month, the housekeeper he'd hired to quietly clean his luxury estate saved his life again, just seconds before his car exploded. It took him another 3 days to realize she was the same woman who saved him the first time. But by then, she was gone again. So who was she? Why did she risk everything to protect him? And what would you do if the person you owed your life to had been in your home this whole time, cleaning your floors? If this story surprises you, stirs something deep, or makes you wonder about the people you overlook, like, share, and hit subscribe. And the stench of diesel hung heavy in the air. Rachel Kane's boots skidded against melted asphalt as she dragged the dead weight of a soldier, twice her size, through shards of twisted metal. His blood soaked her uniform sleeve. His leg shattered. His helmet gone. A second explosion rocked the street behind her, sending debris clattering off a nearby Humvee, already engulfed in flame. "You're gonna be all right, soldier. You're gonna make it." He coughed barely. A blink. Then his eyes opened just long enough to see hers. Brown, fierce, focused. His lips moved, but no sound came. Behind them, the fire crept closer. She didn't flinch. The first time she'd seen combat, Rachel had frozen. Back in Ramadi. First tour. First kill. She remembered the shaking, the sweat. Brutal. Alive. When the medevac chopper landed in the dust, she didn't wait to be thanked. She didn't even look back. She slipped through the smoke and Sam like she was never there at all. No one stopped her, and no one knew that Rachel Kane would spend the next decade running from what she'd done. Not because it was wrong, but because some lives were never meant to be remembered. Lucas Danner sat alone in his study, the kind of room built for men who had made peace with silence. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, dark oak walls, and a fireplace that flickered more for atmosphere than warmth. Outside, the Pacific rain whispered against the glass like a secret trying to break in. 12 years had passed, and yet the memory had not. It came uninvited, never gentle. The searing heat, the metallic taste in his mouth, the pressure in his chest as the world caved in around him. But more than anything, it was her eyes that haunted him. Brown, sharp, and somehow still calm in the middle of hell. He'd never told anyone about her. Not fully. Not even his closest advisors, not his mother. They didn't know how often he replayed the moment, how every woman with strong eyes and a steady voice made his pulse skip, only to disappoint him a heartbeat later. He had searched, of course, hired military contacts, scanned rosters, paid former CIA freelancers to trace evac records. He even bought access to a retired intelligence database, twice. But there was never a name. Never a trace. It was as if she'd stepped out of fire and disappeared into smoke. Now, sitting beneath a wall of accolades and patents and plaques that praised him for things he barely remembered building, Lucas stared at the untouched tumbler of bourbon in his hand. His eyes drifted to the hallway security monitor. Static. Nothing unusual. Just another quiet night in a house too big for any one man to fill. And then there was movement. Not the kind that triggered alarms. No breach. No red flags. Just a faint shift on camera 3, north hallway. A silhouette moving with purpose. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Almost rehearsed. He leaned forward, squinting. It was the housekeeper. The new one. Quiet. Efficient. Always wore gloves, even when folding laundry. He barely remembered hiring her. His assistant handled most staffing now. All he recalled was a file marked veteran clearance confirmed. Lucas watched as she paused in front of the antique display case. His medals, the ones the Pentagon sent after his honorable discharge. She didn't touch them, didn't linger, just looked for exactly 3 seconds, then moved on. Something about that moment unsettled him. He sat back, reached for his phone, paused. "No," he muttered. "Don't be ridiculous." But his hand hovered over the call button to security anyway. It had been 12 years. 12 years of corporate wars, IPOs, contracts with letters he wasn't allowed to spell out in public. 12 years of building a life high enough that nothing should have been able to reach him. But a 3-second pause from a woman he didn't know had just cracked something open he thought was buried for good. He stared at the camera feed a while longer, then turned it off. But that night, sleep stayed far away, held back by the echo of her footsteps and the memory of another moment, another time when someone just like her had saved him from dying in the dirt. But she knew each one like muscle memory now. Polished granite, imported fixtures, curtains that fell like stage drapes hiding a life she had no part in. She didn't need to. That wasn't her role. Every morning, before sunrise, she started in the West Wing. Lucas Danner never woke before 7. That gave her exactly 90 minutes to clear his office, his gym, and his private study without being noticed. She liked it that way. It was safer. But this morning, something felt different. She stepped into the study, gloves already on, hair pinned tight beneath the navy cap. The air inside still carried the scent of last night's fire, cedar and expensive bourbon. His glass sat on the edge of the desk, untouched. Not like him. He usually finished everything. Always precise. She paused, barely long enough to notice. Then wiped the rim. The security monitor on the far wall hummed faintly. Its light blinked. She glanced at it, just once, but it was enough. The lens was angled, newer than the others. Replaced recently. He'd been watching. She moved faster. She crossed the floor with practiced grace. Dusted the handle. Froze. There, buried beneath pens and schedules, was a folder. Its label, Fallujah 2010. Rachel stared at it, unmoving. She didn't touch it, didn't breathe, but her jaw locked tight. She closed the drawer, slower this time, steadier, then turned and left the room as if nothing had changed. Outside, the morning sun touched the marble hallway. Rachel passed a mirror on her way out, but didn't look. If she had, she might have seen it, the flicker of fear behind her eyes. Or maybe it wasn't fear. Maybe it was something sharper, something like recognition. And behind her, deep in the study, Lucas stood in the hallway's shadow, barefoot, unshaven, holding a file identical to the one in the drawer. Not the original, just a copy. He watched her walk away, still silent, still small, still invisible, but now less than a ghost. Now, she had a shape, a rhythm, and for the first time in over a decade, Lucas Danner whispered aloud what he hadn't dared believe until now. It's her. The first sign came in fragments, digital, harmless at first glance. An automated server ping failed at 2:13 a.m. Just one, then two more the next night, milliseconds apart. Lucas's security team flagged it as minor, probably a firmware update syncing off schedule. But Rachel had seen that pattern before. It wasn't a glitch. It was a knock on the door, the kind that didn't wait to be answered. By the third night, she stopped cleaning early and went down to the basement utility room. Not to wash linens. She pulled the fuse box open and knelt behind it. A narrow compartment, one no staff was ever told about, held a steel case she hadn't touched in years. Smiling on the back porch in Montana. Still alive last she checked. She took the drive and slid it into her pocket. Upstairs, Lucas had called in his head of cybersecurity. Someone's in our perimeter. Not physically, digitally. They're pinging our external cameras, but only the ones facing south. You know what that means? No. They know we're watching. And they're watching back. Lucas nodded. Double the off-site logs. Reroute through a sandbox server in DC set traps. The man hesitated. Do you want to notify Homeland? Lucas turned his head. But her eyes didn't leave his hands. Calluses, not on the fingers on the knuckles. Fighter's hands. That night, she didn't sleep. At 3:21 a.m., she left her quarters and slipped into the garage. She popped the hood on Lucas's Range Rover, ran her fingers along the inside panel, and found it, small, black, taped near the firewall. She didn't remove it. Not yet. Instead, she wrote a note. And her, Rachel, stepping into the garage at 3:21 a.m., a post-it stuck to the top sheet. I don't know who you are, but you're not just a housekeeper. And I need to know if I'm still breathing tomorrow morning. She folded the file. And for the first time since she'd arrived, Rachel Kane considered what it would mean if she stayed. The rain had a way of making the mansion quieter than usual. It softened the sounds of footsteps, masked the hum of hidden cameras, blurred the edges of everything. But Rachel moved like the rain wasn't even there, head down, hood up, blending into the walls like shadow stitched to stone. She didn't go to the West Wing that morning. Not the study, not the gym. Instead, she made her way to the restricted floor, top level. No cleaning schedules, no foot traffic, no reason to be there. But she'd memorized the code weeks ago. When the maintenance man left the keypad smudged. 4 digits. Lucas's mother's birthday. The door clicked open like it had been waiting for her. Inside, silence. Past footage. Thermal tracking overlays. Motion shots. She moved straight to Station 4. External perimeter. South view. Last night's gardener wasn't in the feed. But at 4:19 a.m., someone else was. A man in a suit, standing still just beyond the infrared sweep. Not walking. Not hiding. Just watching. His face never turned to camera. But Rachel knew that stance. Shoulders squared. Feet planted. Hands loose by his sides. She used to train men like him. She logged out, powered down the feed, and slid the small flash drive from her jacket into the terminal. Files transferred in seconds. Encrypted logs. Unusual IP patterns. Physical entry blips. All saved. She slipped it back in her pocket just as the elevator chimed. Down the hall. Not expected. She didn't run. She turned, walked calmly toward the stairwell, heart pacing like sniper fire. Halfway down, she stopped, listened. Footsteps, deliberate, steady, past the top of the stairs, and kept moving. Lucas? Rachel moved to the kitchen, picked up a dish towel, and wiped the counters like she hadn't just breached the top-level surveillance core of one of the most secure estates in the Pacific Northwest. And yet, something shifted. She felt it in her chest, that old pressure she hadn't known since Fallujah. Not fear, not panic, anticipation. A shift in weight before impact, a store before contact. And on the monitor behind her, quiet, still, unnoticed, Lucas rewound the elevator footage. Watched her figure move across the top floor. Not lost, not confused, purposeful. And as her image disappeared from the screen, he whispered it again, this time not as a question. It's definitely her. It happened just after sunrise. The estate gates had barely opened for the morning staff. The sky hung low with fog, curling against the blacktop like breath from something alive. Lucas never drove this early, but that day, no security escort, no backup, just him, alone, heading toward the garage. She moved before she thought, dropped the mug in the sink, ran, not fast, not loud, just fast enough to cut through the side door, past the laundry corridor, and down to the garage entrance. She didn't call out, didn't have time. Lucas hit the unlock button. The car lights blinked once, then a click, a soft, unnatural click, the sound no car should ever make. Rachel didn't hesitate. She launched forward, grabbed his shoulder. The air tasted like burnt copper. Smoke rolled out of the garage like fog on fire. Alarms blared. The sprinklers didn't. Lucas choked on the smoke, tried to sit up, but Rachel was already on her feet. Dragging him again, same motion, different war. Don't move, she snapped. You might be bleeding. He coughed. What the hell just happened? You were targeted. Again. She knelt beside him. Local fire. Maybe more. She stood, extended a hand. Lucas took it. For a moment, the chaos around them dulled, like the world had stepped back. And he saw it, her eyes steady and locked. Not frightened, not wide, trained. His voice cracked. You saved me. Again. Rachel looked down at him, breath shallow, soot across her cheek like war paint. You weren't supposed to be in that car, she said, but you were, just like before. He stared at her. Who are you? Rachel turned toward the sound of boots storming down the hallway. She didn't answer. She didn't need to, because somewhere behind them, buried beneath twisted metal and flickering firelight, the shape of an old scar was beginning to show. And this time, Lucas knew better than to look away. But no one could explain why the bomb hadn't triggered sooner or why it had been planted in the first place. Lucas canceled all meetings that day. He sat in his office for hours, door shut, cameras off, a file open on his desk that didn't come from any internal database. It was hers. The footage, the photos, the anomalies, the silent rescues she thought he'd never noticed. And now, she didn't move. I said sit. So she did. Not out of obedience, but because she was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of waiting for someone else to speak first. Lucas paced once, twice, then stopped. I spent millions. I know. Why didn't you come forward? Her voice was low. Even. They told me if I did, my family wouldn't make it to morning. Lucas froze. Ooh. She leaned forward, resting her gloved hands on her knees. You think that explosion this morning was random? You think someone's targeting your business? She shook her head once. They're not after your company, Lucas. They're after the fact that I'm here. Silence stretched long between them. Finally, Lucas asked, so why did you come? Rachel didn't blink. Because I never finished the job. And then, softer, almost an afterthought, because you were supposed to matter. He looked at her, really looked. For the first time, he wasn't seeing a housekeeper. He was seeing a soldier. And something told him the war was just getting started. The next day, the sun never really broke through. It hung behind thick gray clouds like a warning, heavy and unmoving. Rachel left the estate just after noon, said she needed supplies from the hardware store in town. Lucas didn't question it. He wanted to, but he didn't. She took the old pickup reserved for staff runs. No security, no GPS, just wind, road, and the weight in her chest growing heavier with each mile. It started on a way back. At the red light near the old mill, a black sedan pulled up behind her. Too close. Then another in front, angled just slightly off-center, blocking the turn. Rachel's fingers tightened on the wheel. She glanced in the rearview mirror. Two men, not talking, not texting, just watching. The light turned green. Neither car moved. She shifted to reverse, then forward again, testing. No room. They had boxed her in. Her heart didn't race. Her breath didn't change. But her eyes, sharp, soldier-trained, scanned the glove box. She reached down. Not for a weapon. For the tire iron. The door opened behind her. A man leaned in, calm voice. Out of the car, ma'am. Quietly. Rachel smiled. Then moved. Her elbow shot back first, connected with his throat. The door slammed open. She ducked low, rolled across the pavement, boots scraping asphalt. The man staggered. His partner rushed around the front, too slow. Rachel swept his legs with the tire iron, sent him face first into the curb. The first man pulled a weapon. She kicked it from his hand. It skidded under the sedan. They weren't trained. They were hired. She didn't wait. Jumped back into the truck, floored it over the curb, through a patch of wet grass, and back onto the road. Gone before they could regroup. Back at the estate, Lucas was in the control room, reviewing thermal scans when the alert chimed. A second later, Rachel burst through the front entrance. Mud on her jacket, scratches down her forearm. She tossed the tire iron on the marble floor. Lucas turned. What happened? She didn't answer. Just said one thing. They know where I am. He looked at her. Really looked. You need to go off-grid. She shook her head. No, we do. Lucas didn't ask what she meant. He already knew. Because when someone tries to abduct your housekeeper in broad daylight, and she fights them off like she's done it before, you stop asking questions. And start packing bags. They left that night. No security detail. No notice to staff. No calls. No trackers. Just a duffel bag, 2 burner phones, and a destination Rachel spoke aloud only once, Eastwood Cabin. Off Route 74. Lucas drove. She navigated. The road out of Seattle faded fast, steel and glass giving way to pine and fog. Silence sat between them like an old friend neither knew how to greet. He didn't ask where they were going. She didn't offer why, but both knew the only way forward was away. An hour in, the first headlights appeared behind them. 2 vehicles. No plats. Rachel checked the side mirror. They're not locals. Lucas's jaw clenched. They've been tailing since Olympia? Longer. He hit the gas. The Range Rover surged forward, tires hugging wet asphalt. But the car stayed close, closer now. Then came a first bump, a tap to the rear bumper. just enough to say we're here. Rachel's voice was calm. Next turn, gravel road on the right. Do not miss it. Lucas spotted it too late, barely saw the break in the trees. But he turned anyway. The vehicle fishtailed, gravel spraying as he fought the wheel. One of the cars overshot the curve. The second followed, tighter this time. Get ready, Rachel muttered, reaching beneath her seat. She pulled out a small black box, flipped a switch. EMP. Close, she said. A click. Then behind them, silence. The pursuing SUV's headlights flickered, then died completely. They swerved, slid sideways, and vanished behind the tree line. Lucas didn't speak. He just stared ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. Rachel leaned back. That was plan B. There's no plan C. 15 minutes later, they pulled into a clearing. The cabin was small, wooden, windows dark, the kind of place no GPS had mapped in a decade. Lucas stepped out first. This yours? No, it was my handler's. He's dead. She walked to the porch, entered the code on a rusted keypad, and pushed open the door. Lucas followed. Inside, dust, silence, and stillness, so complete it felt like time had been paused. She dropped her bag, peeled off her gloves, and finally, exhaled. Lucas stood in the doorway, unsure whether to speak or sit or run. Rachel turned. I'll sweep the perimeter. You build a fire. He raised a brow. You trust me with matches? For now. She disappeared into the trees. And for the first time since the explosion, Lucas Danner realized he didn't want to be protected anymore. He wanted to understand the woman who'd been saving him for far longer than he deserved. The fire crackled low in the hearth, casting soft gold light across the cabin walls. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like it was searching for something it had already lost. Lucas sat on the worn leather couch, jacket draped over the armrest, staring at the flickering flames like they held answers. Rachel emerged from the back room, hair damp, boots off, wearing a black thermal and the quiet of someone who had lived too long between alarms. No gloves, no masks, just her. He looked up. Everything clear. She nodded. For now. She crossed the room. Rachel stared at the fire. I wanted to be. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Why me? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was steady. Because you were supposed to matter. You were the only one who looked me in the eyes before I pulled him out of the fire. Everyone else just screamed. You saw me. Lucas blinked. I didn't even remember what your face looked like. You weren't supposed to, she said. That's how ghosts survive. He shook his head, laughing quietly, but there was no humor in it. And yet here we are. You saved me twice. Risked everything. And I still don't know who you really are. Rachel looked at him. Not hard. Not cold. Just honest. I'm someone who used to believe in missions. In following orders. In finishing the job. And now? Now I'm just trying to figure out who I am without the uniform. Lucas nodded slowly. And me? You're the only thing I didn't walk away from. The fire popped. Outside, the wind calmed. He reached for the burner phone, hesitated, then turned it off completely. Rachel watched him. You sure? He nodded. If I don't show up for 72 hours, the board will assume I'm negotiating a hostile acquisition in Zurich. She smirked. That buys us 3 days. He leaned back, eyes never leaving hers. Let's use it. Not for hiding. Not for running. But for remembering who they were before the world taught them to disappear. They sat in silence again, but it was different now. Warmer. Real. And somewhere between the ticking clock and the quiet breath of the fire, Lucas Danner understood something he'd never read in any contract or strategy deck. Some debts aren't paid back in money. They're paid back in presence. If someone ever showed up when the world was burning around you, don't forget them. And if you've ever been the one to stand between someone and their fall, tell your story. Like, share, and leave a comment below. Who would you disappear for?